my darlings, how are we doing? And today I'm going to be talking to you about my wish list for off-grid textile projects. Now remember, this is my wish list, my personal wish list, and you might get some ideas from it and what have you. I'm not saying that you need to have any of these things or that you might want to have any of these things, but you know, my personal wish list does not have to be yours, okay? But you know, we're just doing it for funsies, right? Okay, yeah, funsies. Now, as you guys know, I am a big supporter of hand tools and off-grid equipment, etc., because the electric and gas prices are just ridiculous. We've already been promised at some point the idea of rolling brownouts and blackouts. So being in the middle of a project or being in the middle of, you know, something that you really need to be doing, you kind of need to have tools available and the skills and abilities to use them that don't rely on electric and gas, you know, because it's just common sense. If you want to move that forward and say, okay, let's just say it's an SHTF situation and there is no gas and electric, then what are you gonna do? Okay, what are you gonna do then? So we still need to have certain products. We certainly need to have certain, you know, things in our homes. We're going to have to look at creating, you know, blankets and clothing and other things, you know. So we've got to, it may not just be for us, it may be for others, because we may be the only one who can do it, or we might need to be able to teach other people. And sometimes that equipment comes in handy for being able to do that. Both things. So, you know, it's always fun. But it also gives you the opportunity, if you have it now, to test it out, hone your skills, and get better. Now, me personally, I spend winter learning new skills. Every year in the winter, I either relearn or brush up on or try and learn a new skill or craft or something to just better myself and better my abilities and better my skills. Winter's a really good time for doing indoor things because you can't really go out much, you know, and in some places going out is an absolute no-no because you're, you know, waist deep in snow. So having indoor crafts and things to do, which will keep you busy and occupied during the winter, and at the end of it you could end up with something amazing, is a really, really good idea. Textile crafts are a really good way of doing that and having something at the end. Now, number one on my list is a ta-da! Spinning wheel. Now, spinning wheels are really, really useful things because not only is this about wool, but it can be about plant-based fibers like nettles and flax and cotton, and being able to spin those if you're able to grow them. To learn on, you know, spinning wheels can be purchased really cheaply, and if you're lucky and in a more rural environment, you may find yourself able to pick one up incredibly cheap at a second-hand shop or a charity shop or something like that. So they're a really great item to have. Does it take practice? Yes. Can it be expensive to buy those products now? Yes. So that's why I'm saying grow your own flax, grow your own cotton, go and forage for nettles and learn how to do this stuff from scratch, right? There's also groups on places like Facebook where farmers around the UK are offering free fleeces. Now, they're filthy. You're going to have to clean it yourself, okay? But you get to do the whole thing from scratch. This is fine, not a problem. A lot of people just go and collect all these free fleeces just to put on the garden, which is fine and not a problem, and is a really, really good idea for the really, really monkey bits. But if you want free fleeces and you want free wool and you're doing it tough and you've managed to somehow find yourself a spinning wheel, you know, why not go and collect some free wool that's fairly close to you, or find someone who can pick it up for you and go from there. Learn the whole experience, because honestly, it doesn't all just fall from the sky. Now, if you don't have the room for a spinning wheel, or you are a little intimidated by that and you'd like to try something that's more of a baby-sized one, which is what I would probably suggest to others and is something that I'm going to do myself, then you're going to need one of these. Ta-da! A drop spindle. It's number 2 on my wish list. You use these by hand. You can stick it in a drawer. They actually, most of them come apart because the wheel part and the stick part, they tend to come apart. Some of them do, some of them don't. So, you know, they're quite easily moved and portable and all of that kind of thing. And you get the same result as you would from a spinning wheel. And you can do it on the move if that's what you want to do. You know, it's that simple. But it gives you the confidence to try bigger and better things. Now, if you have been lucky enough to find free fleeces in your area, or you've grown your own flax or nettles or anything like that, there's a few things that you're going to have to do to process those fibres before you get to the spinning stage, and one of them is here. It's the carding machine. Okay, so that's the one where you kind of get a lot of the old monkey bits out. This one's a drum carder. Next to it is just a little board carder type thing. But the drum one you can wind around and it'll do it for you in a lot of different ways. And then the other one you can just do yourself. But it is a good way of getting any of the other bits out that once it's washed are still in the fleece. It'll separate the fibres out a lot, you know, and it'll help. It does. It makes it all floofy and nice and nicey and squishy. Now, from the carding boards, you can go to the blending boards. Now, the blending board is where you get lots of different colours of your wool once you've, you know, dyed it and made it pretty and stuff like that. And you can bring them together and have lots of multicoloured fibres if that's what you want to do. And this little board here is, you know, a really good way of doing that. So, you know, on the other one we showed you the drum carder, we also showed you the carding brushes, and the board there, that could be used as a blending board. You can do it anyway. You don't need to really worry about things like that, but you know, it's nice to have these things and be able to go, do you know what, I can do that and I don't need to worry about having this set up or that set up, because it's that simple. So we've carded our wool, we've blended our wool, we've made it all pretty, it's dyed, it's all fabulous, and we've spun it. So the next thing we want to do is make it into balls or wind it onto bobbins so that it is much more manageable to use. And for that, we have 2 items. First off, we have the umbrella ball winder. Ta-da! Now, you may have seen one of these in a craft show, or, you know, at agricultural shows in the crafting areas and stuff like that. But it's usually where the yarn that you've spun tends to go in onto those, and then it goes onto the ball machine, which is this. Now, far more prominently, there's the plastic version of this. I don't like plastic versions of things, especially if I'm looking at something that I might have to be reliant on because we have no other choice. I'd rather have something that I can change the parts on, repair, and in that respect I would prefer to have this one, which is the wooden one, because, you know, it's fairly easily fixed. It's just a few bolts, nuts, and bits of wood, really. Now, speaking of bobbins, and speaking of making balls of wool and, you know, having something to wind your cottons on and threads and stuff like that too, you're going to need some of these. These are bobbins. They are there to wind your threads and yarns and things like that onto. Yes, these are wooden ones. There's a really good reason for that. Because they last. You know, they're easily made as well if you need to do that. Now, if you're making your own and producing your own threads, as in sewing threads rather than woolen threads, then bobbins are going to be one of your best friends. Now, there's all kinds of shapes and sizes and wonderful things, and all kinds of special ones that, you know, look like sheep, you know, and, you know, the tall ones, short ones, squishy ones, whatever. The point is, these are all really, really useful items to keep your threads and yarn carefully looked after and in one spot, so it doesn't fray, so it doesn't get all knotted. Because by this point, if you've been making your own threads and yarns, you've already put hours and hours and hours and hours and possibly days and possibly weeks of work into your threads and yarn. The last thing you're going to want is to come in and find that the kids have gone, oh look, it's Brinny, gone through your sewing box and started getting everything in a tangle because they're playing. Much easier to fix that situation if you have a bunch of spools like these, or bobbins, or whatever you want to call them, okay? And it helps keep them a little bit more organized for you as well. At the moment, I don't have any of these, and when I do need the ones that I have, because I buy a lot of my threads in wholesale big clump lots, so I have little sets of thread drawers, you know, I use a piece of cardboard, which is great, but I really would like to have something a little bit more stable and permanent, if that makes sense. Yeah, less throwaway. Okay, so before we get stuck into the next one, I just wanted to explain a little bit about where these videos came from. Okay, so back in March, I was looking at going into surgery. I'm still waiting for surgery. But I made a series of 8 wishlist videos so that you guys would have content for those 8 weeks that I was recovering from surgery. And some of them are now so out of date that I have half the things on those lists. So the original one, the foodie one, is still absolutely relevant. This one I'm having to remake because half the things I had on it are not there anymore. And so it probably won't be as many as 8. Okay, so there will be a couple more, but we'll just see how it goes, shall we? But yeah, there's just a little bit of silliness that I had to fill in space for when I was supposed to be having surgery, but I haven't had the surgery yet, so yeah, we'll just keep plugging along, I suppose, and I'll have to come up with some other brilliant idea. I don't know, something. Anywho, let's crack on. Now, we had a look at the yarn ball winders, okay, but they're a little bit big for doing threads. So things like sewing threads and plant-based threads, cotton threads, things like that, they're a little bit big for that. So there's a different kind of winder for that, which puts things onto a bobbin, okay, which is what we've been talking about, like a bobbin or a spool or whatever you want to call it. So, and here it is. In fact, there's 2 of them, so we're going to put one here and one here. Ta-da! So again, I've chosen the wooden ones. Why? Because they can be fixed, they can be repaired, they can be duplicated. You know, I prefer to have things that are able to have those things done. Do I need them? No. But this is a wish list. You know? Would I prefer to have the equipment if I could have it? Well, yes, I would. Why? It makes my life easier. I don't have to sit there for hours on end and roll one of these by hand. You know, I'd have a little machiney to do it, and I'd just go doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo until it's done. Probably still take me hours, but it wouldn't be as frustrating as trying to roll one of these. Okay, I'm just saying. Think smarter. Work smarter, not harder, people. Just because it could be like an SHTF situation does not mean you have to go back to being a caveman. I'm just saying. Now, some of you might be a little bit intimidated by the whole idea of, you know, making your own thread and spinning your own wool and doing all of that kind of stuff. And I can understand that, because it can be a little bit intimidating, because you kind of look at it and you see the women at the fairs and things like that, and you think, oh, I don't know if I could do that. But you got to remember that they started somewhere too. They might be knocking out a ball every 20 minutes, but you know, they started somewhere too, and they weren't just born with a spinning wheel in their hand, okay? But if you want something that's going to give you a bit of confidence, and it's a beginner level textile project, it just fell off my lap, and happens to be one of my personal favorites, and is incredibly useful for not only making things, you know, that you can wear, like hats. Okay, don't start laughing. Okay, I love this hat. It's my bluebell hat, and I really love this hat. Okay, it's my bluebell hat. You don't have to make them look like this. Okay, this was a personal choice. I did this by choice. I didn't have my arm broken. I didn't make a cock up. I did this on purpose. So, alright. But bowler hats and flat caps and all sorts of, you know, different felted hats over the years, and they could be very, very useful. And that kind of, you know, ability and skill is really simple to learn. Okay. Now, over the years, I've done little pictures like this. I'm showing off now. Yes. Little backgrounds for embroideries that I have planned. You know, little things like this. Ta-da! You know, all kinds of things. These, like, literally took me less than an hour to do. And you can do it on the roving wool. You know, you don't have to have... That's the stuff that's been carded, okay? And pulled into, like, long ropes. Okay? You know, stuff like this. All of these really cool ones. I really like these. I love the spiral ones. It's my little thought bubbles. Like I said, these are all backgrounds for embroideries. Oh, it's my trees. Trees, you know. So yes, these are all prettiful ones. Okay. But the very, very same technique can be used to make felt fabric for clothing, for blankets, to cover animals like horse blankets and stuff like that. It can be used for all manner of things. So, and it's what the Mongols use to line their yurts, is massive, huge, felted blankets. And the way they make them is they wrap them up in a roll and have it behind the horses and drag it around with them behind them while the horses are let loose, you know, while they're riding the horses, getting to wherever they want to go, you know, or they'll put it behind a cart and pull it. You know, we don't necessarily have that kind of luxury or fun, but what we can do is what I'm going to show you now. Okay. Now there are two different types of mats you can get for wet felting. Now one that is very, very cheap, and you can pretty much find it anywhere. You could even find it in the supermarket in the world food section, and it's a sushi mat. Okay, it's a sushi mat. Now sushi mat placemats are 10 a penny. You can get them for pennies, literally. Whether you just get a sushi mat itself, or you want to get something a little bit bigger, so you get the placemat sized one. But the little they're basically the little matchstick placemats that are all lined up beside each other. Now, if you're wanting to make something small, that's the perfect size. If you're wanting to make something bigger, like a blanket or a piece of fabric, then you're probably going to be better off getting something like this. Now what this is a matchstick blind or a bamboo blind, and they're about the size of your average front window or bedroom window. You can buy them in whatever size you want. You know, the bigger it is, the bigger the piece of fabric you can make, or the bigger the piece of felt you can make, you know, so the more things you can do with it. Can smaller pieces of felt be put together? Yes, they can even be felted together. So if you don't have the opportunity to find like a matchstick blind in a second-hand shop, because I wouldn't go and buy one brand new if you don't have to, the other option is to go and get those very similar sort of reed fencing panels that you can get as well. They're very, very similar, and they will work just as well. Basically, you need something that can be rolled up and is going to last, you know, and they are very good at doing that, because a lot of the motion that you use is just rolling back and forth with your fabric, with your mat and your fabric, with, you know, and that's all it is, other than some soap and some water. Honestly, I mean, you can't get simpler for something that's amazingly brilliant and so versatile and so cheap to make, really, and simple. It's great. But blue, my hands won't be able to cope with all of that and being wet all the time and all of that kind of work. Well, worry not. Some very crafty people have come up with different tools over the years. Personally, I don't know if I'd want these, but I can see how other people might want them, and how maybe later in life these items might actually come in handy, you know. So we're going to have a look at a few of the different tools that you can get to help you with more molded, shaped felt than the blanket kind of fabric variety of rolling. So different types of felt require different kinds of molds, and it kind of requires a different kind of handling of the felt. So say for example you're making slippers or you're making hats or something like that, you're going to have to do both sides of the felt, and there's usually what is called a last in the middle to stop the felt from attaching to itself, so you have a nice break in it. So these are some of the tools that people have come up with to help themselves and others be able to felt for a little bit longer, as it has been shown that some people tend to develop things like carpal tunnel syndrome and stuff like that if they're doing felting in and nothing else. Pretty much. But you know, can I just say that if you are doing only one job and not doing anything else, of course you're going to get carpal tunnel syndrome. It's basically you know, repetitive strain injury, but in your wrists, you know. So think about that. You know, you want to be doing this, but okay, but you don't need to do it every day for the rest of eternity. Do other things. So this particular one, it looks like a rolling pin, okay, and for all intents and purposes does exactly the same job as a felting mat, only you don't need the felting mat, you have the roller. Now I personally, I can see how this could be useful. If your mat broke and you hadn't had a chance to fix it, or there wasn't repairable and you couldn't get a new one, this could be very, very useful, because all you'd need is a flat surface on one side and you don't need that on the other, okay, and you're just rolling it back and forth to be able to use it. It's very handy for chasing away people who are annoying you as well. I'm just saying, you know, it could be useful. Now this particular one is what's known as the felting washboard, which again could be used in conjunction with the, you know, the rolling pin variety, and be used as the under part for that, and, you know, be rolling away. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's also very useful in that particular way if you've got things that you've made that like this, and you need to finish off the felting after you've cut this piece open and got the last out, so you can get in there and just really kind of, you know, rub it against the washboard. So yeah, I would find that quite useful. I would find that one quite useful indeed. So this next one up here, ta-da, is a very useful one if you are having issues with your hands or wrists. As it's got the long handle there, you can actually just hold it how it's comfortable for you and just put your weight behind it, so that your weight behind it is what's doing the action and not the pressure you're putting on the piece. Like I said, it can be used in either hand, so therefore if this one gets tired, you can use this one, you know. But it's one of those ones that you want to use to, if you're doing like molded felting, you know, because they're the ones that, you know, you've got to work a bit harder on those than the pictures. I'm not gonna lie, you do have to put a lot of work in, and especially if you're making slippers, or you're making like a little bowl, felted bowl, or cat bed, or if it's a bit bigger, and whatever it is that you're making that's in a shape, 3D shape, they're gonna come very in handy. Just saying. Oh, it's starting to get a bit squishy in here just quietly, but you know, this one is a short handle version of the one up the top. You know, it's a little bit bigger as well, so you can do wider spaces. So if you're going to use it instead of the rolling pin or whatever, just it does a bit more, you know, a little bit more. And again, you can hold it however it's comfortable for you, and that's always a good thing. So yeah, it's used the same way as the long handled one, except it's a stubby short handled one. Is it worth having both? That's a choice you can make. Would I want both? Yes, because I have ADHD and I need all of the things, because that is just a thing. I'm just saying. It just is. Deal with it. Now we're down to the very, very last one of our felting hand tools, and it's this one here. This one is rather special, actually. This is one that you would use if you were going round corners. Now, I know that sounds very, very weird, because, you know, we're talking about fabric and felting and all that kind of stuff. But if you've got a 3D model of something that is on a last, like a 3D last, like a slipper or a hat, then this is going to help you a lot to go around those corners and around those slopes and around the curvy bits, okay, without having to worry about only a small portion of what you are using. Like if you were using this one or this one, would be able to be used at any one time. This one means that you can use the whole thing. Yeah, so you're using it on a lot more surfaced area, and it's going to make life that much easier and quicker, you know. And everyone's going to think you're brilliant because you've already finished. Everybody else is sitting there going lob, lob, lob with a tiny little, you know, this one or this one. And you're sitting there going, done. I'm done, miss. Point is, all of these are tools. Do I want them all? Yes. Why? Because they are actually fun to use. They're fun to use and they're useful and they all serve a purpose. It also means that if and when I'm teaching somebody else to do this, then they might find it easier to do if they had one of these items here. You know? So I would then have it for them. At this point in my life, I'm quite happy doing it with my hands. Thank you very much. And a sushi mat. Or a matchstick blind. But I do like playing with toys. I do like having new toys to play with. Let's get on to the next one, shall we? Okay, so we've actually done a lot about wool, and we haven't really looked very much about threads, like cotton threads and, you know, flax threads or nettle threads or anything like that. Now, if you are going to be producing your own flax or foraging for nettles to produce your own threads from, then one of these is going to come in handy. Very, very much so. You're gonna want it. Put it on your list. I got it on my list. Can you see it? It's there. But Blue, what are they? You keep saying they're these, but what are they? Well, I forgot, so I had to go and look them up. But it's called a flax Hechel. Okay, and it's basically a carding or threshing machine for flax and nettles, and to get the fibres out of the stalks once they've been processed to the point where they're ready for that. Okay, now if you used a carding machine on them, it wouldn't work so well as this would. This basically takes off the outside layer of the stem and leaves you with the inside fibres, and then breaks down the inside fibres, but it does it in such a way as you end up with nice long threads rather than puffy cottony goodness, you know, that kind of thing. Now you can purchase these with just the base and put the nails in yourself. They are built to replace the nails. They've always been built to do that. So if you get bent nails or whatever, unbend those nails, you can replace the nails. And I love that very much about these things, because you find a lot of the older hand tools were all made to be repaired, not to be thrown away and get a new one, because people just could not afford to do that. Now our next little thread craft is something that I have wanted to learn ever since I used to watch my auntie do it and listen to the click clack that this particular item makes. Now you may recognize these. These are lace making bobbins, and for me that would be the epitome of all kinds of textile crafts. Now, although this particular craft is incredibly time consuming and takes a lot of patience and effort to learn, it can be incredibly rewarding. Now, lace makers were incredibly poor people back in the day, and in 1908 there was a pamphlet that was put out about the lace making industry, in which it was written that £300 had been paid to workers, of which there were 70, that they were earning between 2 shillings and 10 shillings a week. 2 shillings in today's money is 10p. For those around the world, that's the equivalent of 10 cents. pretty much, 20 cents if you're in Australia. So, they weren't earning a lot, and it could take them several weeks to complete a piece, and they were paid incredibly poorly for that effort, and worked in very cold warehouses and offices, or lace making studios. Rude. So, these days lace is absolutely, that a small piece and a collar would go for something like £500, £500 to £600, and possibly even more depending on the person, depending on the artist, and what it's made with. If it's made with silk, then obviously it's going to be a little bit more. But it is said that silk lace is very difficult. Very difficult. But it is something that I would like to learn. It's one of those things that you... As one of those things I could do in front of the TV, or sitting out in the garden, watching the world go by, just enjoying the one day of sunshine that we get, in a year. The point is this: it's one of those things that you can do once you know what you're doing. You can do it without really thinking too hard about it. It's also one of those things that I can do on my lap when I'm not having a great health day. So, and yeah, lace making has a beautiful side to it, a beautiful part of the story, not just stories of, the rich putting on the poor again, and taking advantage. It's not all just about that. Okay. Yeah, but it is something that I am planning on learning very, very soon. Now, we have gone through producing wool and yarn and cleaning it all up and doing all of that, and we've gone through all of the plant fiber type threads and all of doing that, and we've done a couple of different craft and textile projects in that. But now we come to the ultimate project and learning texture craft. Okay, now this is the one that can make or break you. Okay, it's up to you how you learn to do it. There are millions of different ways of doing it. There really truly are. There are a million different sizes of these particular items, from ones that you can sit on your lap to ones that you can attach around your foot if you're traveling, to ones that can sit on the table, and ones that will take up half your house. What we are talking about is loom weaving. And one of the things that is on my list is a floor loom. But Blue, in an SHTF situation, that's not exactly the easiest thing to move. No, it really isn't. It really, really isn't. And unless you are either in a situation where you can bug in, or if you do need to bug out, you have a location set up where this could be set up, then, it's going to be an interesting piece to either try and carry or not, which is where the smaller ones come in. Okay? Big looms like this can be taken apart and the specific pieces carried. And if you're wanting to make fabrics, etc., it's that kind of one that you're really going to need. The smaller ones are a little bit more difficult. You're going to be ending up wearing a lot of patchwork and a lot of scarves. But if you're wanting to have fabric that's going to be, useful for longer pieces of fabric that are better for clothing and that kind of thing, then you're going to have a floor loom. You know, it's all very well making your own felt, but in the middle of summer, you know, if it's some kind of climate thing, do you honestly want to be standing there in 45-degree heat in felted wool? Or are you going to want to have something that's plant-based fibered and is going to give you the cool that you need in that kind of situation? I know what my choice is. Now, yes, most UK households will not have the room for this. They do take up an awful lot of space, and if we had one, it would probably take up half of this room. Half of this room. Probably from there back, because it's got to have room to move. The parts move. So there's got to be room for the mechanical movements of the item. So, you know, that would be an interesting one for us to have in this particular dwelling. But there is another one that I would like to introduce to you, and it is the Inkle Loom. That one there. The Inkle Loom. Now the Inkle Loom is also can be made in any size that you want. Okay, now it's also used for making braid work and belts and all that kind of thing. And it's basically you make thinner, longer things with it, which is great. Let's be honest. And you can do whatever you like with it once you've done it. Let's be fair, you know. And I've actually been looking into making one of these. Unfortunately, I lent my book to someone who I was doing archaeology with, and I haven't seen it again. So I'm gonna have to go and get another copy. But it has all the patterns of making your own Inkle Loom, whether it be a little laptop one, whether it be a little tabletop one, whether it be a big floor one like this one. You know, the thing with looms is this: they don't have to be huge. I actually have about 5. I don't have a floor one. That's why it's made my wish list, because that's what I want. Ultimately, is a floor loom. But I have several tabletop ones and one that I can use on my lap. And it's all kinds of fun. So, you know, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be taking up half your entire house. You know, it can be something that's small and able to be put away. You know, it doesn't have to be huge, but it's made my wish list because for me, I like the clack-de-clack. I like the click-clack, and I just do. Anything that goes click-clack, it just got my vote every single time. There's something about a click-clack, whether it's because it kind of reminds me of trains, I don't know, and I kind of like the sound of old trains, or if it's just, you know, just the whole slow pace of it. And trust me, weaving is slow. It's not something that you're going to race through. It's not something you're going to get knocked out in a day. You know, if you're trying to make a piece of fabric for a dress, or making a piece of fabric for, you know, whatever else, it's going to take a while. You know, there are people in Asia that I've met who were in Singapore, who they do batik, etc., but they make their own fabric to do the batik, and it can take them a year to do a 10-meter piece of fabric. A year. That's a lot of work. You know, and they're at it from the time they wake up to the time they drop. Let's be honest. You know, which is why handmade batik is so damn expensive. Because it should be. The kind of work that these people put in is incredible. You know, but if you're someone who's able to weave on a loom, that is absolutely a commutable skill. It's brilliant. That's a skill for life, that is. I actually have a friend called Looney Loom Works. He's got a channel on Twitch. You should go check him out. If you're interested in any way, shape or form in weaving, go check him out. He's fantastic, and he does this because it makes him feel good. And he does a lot of geeky weaving. You know, lots of geeky weaving. So it doesn't have to be normal everyday stuff. It can just be what it is, you know. So yeah, the loom has made my wish list. It's always made my wish list. For me, it's the ultimate piece of equipment that I've never owned. I've used them. I have tabletop ones, but the floor one is my ultimate goal. So if you've been watching this far, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you, and thank you for listening to my drivel and waffle for the last 40 odd minutes. And I won't take up too much more of your time, but I just want to say, if you haven't already, can you hit the thumbs up button? Because, you know, it really does actually help the channel. And if you're new to the channel and you're really liking this, because obviously you've sat through it for the last 40 minutes, so you must like it in some way, hit the subscribe button. Come and see some more of this sort of stuff, because it's gonna happen. I mean, it'll happen. You know, and I do all sorts of other things as well, you know, so come and join the chaos over here. It's fun. And how about you share me with your friends, eh? I'm not yours to keep all to yourself. There's enough of me to go around. You go share me out. Thank you very much. Rude. Anywho, now that that's out of the way, I've got one more. Okay, technically it's two more, and technically these are no longer my wish list items. However, on the original video, one of them was. I have since been able to acquire one of these items. The other one I already had, and I've had for the last 11 years. And no matter where I go, no matter what I do, it comes to. And it's this. It's the Singer Patcher. Now, I love this thing more than I can actually tell you. I do. You know, if I had to choose between it and my kids, I would be thinking for a while. Okay? That's how much I love this thing. Now, originally they were created as machines for cobblers or shoemakers, and the reason it's called a patcher is because the needle turns 360 degrees. So it doesn't matter what diagonal you want it on or what way you want it to sew, you don't have to move the fabric around. It will just go in that direction. You just change the direction of the needle and it will sew in that direction, which is why it's called a patcher. It is a beautiful, beautiful machine. It is wonderful to work with. I have made several pairs of shoes, or, you know, slippers. And I've also made leather hats. I made a leather top hat for a friend of mine many years ago using the patcher. I've also used it as a normal sewing machine because that can be done too. Excuse me, I've got a hiccup. That friggin'... Seriously! You haven't got an appointment. Will you just bugger off? Get! Oh, do you not know who I am? Stop it. So rude. You know? It's just rude. Oh. Anywho, the Singer Patcher. Beautiful piece of kit. And if you don't have one, maybe you should think about it. Just saying. Because, you know, people need shoes. We need shoes. I mean, I don't need that many shoes. But, you know, I wear barefoot most of the time. So my particular patcher is from 1923, I believe. This is not it. This is not it. Mine is in the hallway, and I haven't got a picture of it right now because I just wanted to get this done. So this is the closest thing I could get. This is exactly what mine looks like. There is a piece that actually goes underneath that as well that you can get, that makes it a flat surface, so not just the long arm, which is where your boots and stuff would be sewn up. So it can be used as a actual sewing machine as well, which I have done, and it's beautiful for that. However, I've always wanted to replace my hand crank sewing machine that I lost a little while back, and another that I sold. So, you know, life happens and things happen, and you know, if people can help you out, they do. And so yeah, you do see these for extortionate prices. I've just seen one online for £1,000. You're not going to get that. Don't even try to sell them for that. You won't get it. You will not get it. I got 75. I bought mine for 75, and that was the price that we purchased it for. And then I purchased it off the person who'd purchased it, if that makes sense. So, you know, so I ended up with a patcher, and it is beautiful, and it's such a wonderful piece of equipment. However, it does take bodies to move it. The entire thing from top to bottom is cast iron, but it works without electric, works without gas, and you can hand do all the servicing and stuff for it yourself without an issue. The manuals are available, so you can go and get them. That's not a problem. The parts are all still available, so you can get those too. In fact, they're still making parts for this one, which is incredible, really. So, you know, considering the age of them, but because they are still very popular, and they're still popular with cobblers and shoemakers and shoe menders, etc. They're still very popular with them. They can actually be automated. You can have an electric unit put on the side to turn the cogs, and you can have it done that way. And I've seen a few of them being converted over, but it's not going to happen with mine. It's not. Now, the one that I did get was and I'm already bursting because I love it, was a replacement for my hand crank sewing machine. I've wanted this one for a very long time. Now again, these are able to be serviced by hand. People put extortionate prices on them, but honestly, you can pick up a really good one for 25 quid. And I did. That's what I paid for mine, and it came with its wooden original box as well, so that was really kind of cool. They're easily serviced. You can buy the parts. The modern parts for the singers actually fit the old machines. I know that sounds really weird. The patch is a little bit different. You need to get the mini bobbins, mini singer bobbins for that, but and obviously the mini bobbin holder for that as well. But the hand crank singer is exactly the same size, bobbin, casing and everything that the modern machines have. So it's so easy to fix, it's so easy to repair, and it's so easy to just service. You know, a little bit of dusting, a little bit of clean oil, a little bit of cleaning off, and you're ready to go for the next year and more. Again, it's another one of those machines that does the little clickety clack, you know, not the brrrr. And I love the whole clickety clack. I do love the clickety clack. I think clickety clack is about my speed. You know, I'm not good with the whole brrrr. I have used industrial machines because obviously I used to make costumes for a living, and that was what we used to do. Where I worked, we had industrial machines, which scared the living hell out of me, can I just say. And both of my thumbs will probably never be the same again. Because once that needle goes through, it hurts. And it's hard to get out. And then it's kind of like an arrow that gets stuck in your shoulder. You've got to get the needle out yourself, which is all kinds of fun. Can I just say? Not. Anywho, so I prefer these. I can do them at my speed. If I feel I'm going a bit fast, I can stop, and it actually stops. All I have to do is take my hand off it. Don't even have to worry about my foot. Because one of the things that I've noticed, and this is really interesting, right? Okay, so one of the things I've noticed is when you start getting scared on a sewing machine, your foot goes down further. Because you're kind of almost trying to apply the brakes, but unfortunately what you're doing is speeding up. So, if you've got a hand on the hand crank, and you're just like, oh, no, stop, you've stopped. There's nothing more than you could do. You've stopped. So you are less likely to have an accident on it. It's great for teaching children how to sew. Could I get a treadle attachment for this? Yes, I could. Am I intending to? No. I'm good with it just being a little clickety-clack hand crank. I don't need the treadle thing. The treadle thing means I have to think too hard, and I'd rather concentrate on what I'm doing rather than what my feet are doing, if that makes sense. So, that's my other one that would have made the wish list on you. I've just already got one. So they are a great piece of kit. I really, really wanted to get one again. I probably wasn't going to get it for another 6 months, but I chose to get it now because Tanny's uniforms are needing repairing, and as much as I do a lot of hand sewing, his work clothes really kind of needed the extra help, if you know what I mean. The little bit of extra solidity to the stitching, which only a machine can do. And so I found one, and Facebook Marketplace. Guys, just have a look on Facebook Marketplace because you'll find them everywhere. Don't pay more than about $40 for one. Honestly, pointless. Absolutely pointless. Because you will find them a lot cheaper. And the average everyday person is probably selling them for about £25-30 at the absolute outside. If you find them in second-hand shops, they won't be any more than £25. I know, I used to work in one. So, because there are so many of them, the market is actually flooded with these things. You know why? Because people don't throw them out. They do not throw them out. They don't get rid of them. They just move on to the next owner somehow. But you don't find them in landfill. That's very rare that you would find something like that in landfill. At the very least, if it did even find it, because there's nothing to dye on it. Okay, there's nothing. Eventually, some of the parts wear out, but if you've got new parts, you just replace the parts. Because it's built to be repaired. And that's the beauty of these things. They are built to be repaired. They're not built to break in a year or two. They are built to be repaired. Both my machines were made in the early 1920s. That's 100 years ago. And they're still working perfectly today. Now, I couldn't say that about my other machines. I had vintage machines, ones that I would call vintage, like 1970s, 1960s machines. But as soon as you turned them on, the fuse in the foot blew up. As soon as the fuse in the foot blows up, you need a whole entire foot. Not only that, but as soon as that's all replaced, then because the fuses today are different from the fuses then, the motor starts to smoke and go. So no, I prefer what I have, and I can clickety-clack away in my own time. And it doesn't matter if the lights are out, doesn't matter if we're using candlelight, doesn't matter if it's, you know, whatever. As long as I look after these machines, they will last me forever. And then they'll be passed on to someone else. And they'll last them for as long as they look after them. And the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And that's why I want the kind of equipment that I want. Because these pieces of equipment can be used by the next generations over and over and over again. Until finally, eventually, they all fall to pieces. But until then, you know, we can keep fixing them. And we will. And you can readily buy the parts. And that makes life so much easier. So, thank you guys for watching me today. I really do appreciate your company. And until the next time, bye!